RPG Day 2018, Day 19, music that enhances your game. Hi, Bat here. So I decided to pull out some CDs for the answer for this question. So here's a small pile. I stopped short of pulling out a load of vinyls. So in particular, things like soundtracks from science fiction or fantasy series, so like Babylon 5 for example. Any motion soundtracks tend to be pretty useful. As a lot of people have mentioned for today's question, if it doesn't include lyrics, it's more sort of suitable for gaming. You don't want people being distracted by lyrics, unless of course that is appropriate, because people can actually track different people can track certain amounts of things better than others. And with some players you can sort of help set up an upcoming mood by putting something on and just sort of indicating, foreshadowing a little bit, you know, changing the tempo of the music that you're playing. Or if you're actually on a break, you know, on a tea break, you can put on a track in the background whilst you go off and make the brews or something. So that's a little subtle way of influencing stuff that happens in the game. And like quite a lot of people are actually mentioning, I also use background music to help inspire whilst I'm creating ideas for NPCs or my own player characters, as well as for plots and stories, you know, an artifact or a particular setting that I want. A classic thing to do as well in the World of Darkness is the nightclub scene or similar thing in Cyberpunk. The sheer amount of different music in the Cyberpunk setting, or any Cyberpunk setting, obviously Shadowrun, etc. And the other thing, of course, with music is there's certain tracks that I'm not particularly keen on. I'm not going to go into sort of like naming and shaming anything, but this sort of stuff I can tolerate. If I think it's appropriate, then I'll put it on. And there's been a few occasions in the past when players have actually recommended something, either to do with their character or what they're intending to do in an actual scene coming up. So I've queued up the appropriate music. And maybe it's an age thing, but as we've got a bit older, we've sort of used music less and less. There was a period of time where I was using a lot of sound effects. There was a bunch of free sound effects and stuff I got offline, and that was great, except for the fact that unless I was doing a lot of prep work for the game, trying to get everything set up, it could lead to at least a few seconds of searching for the right sound file. And it kind of loses the immersion at that stage. I mean, you're adding one level of immersion, but that's after you've already broken the sort of game flow. And for the small levels of benefits, we found that they didn't really work out very well. And more sort of generic soundtrack music would sort of fit more appropriately there. And of course, it's interesting as well how, like, for example, Man of Steel, I'm not exactly a fan of that film, but the soundtrack's just amazing. And although it's very distinctive to that movie, it has a certain quality and feel which I think transcends the movie. The same thing with Gladiator and other very famous films that some people have watched, quite an exuberant number of times, but they can sort of put up with it. And when I was younger, we used to do a lot of like playing Iron Maiden and Steve Vai whilst playing Cyberpunk, and that was partly because we didn't really have the vinyl or record collection, you know, the tape collections as they back then. And as times have changed, then obviously we've got access to more and more music. I've pretty much expanded my music library massively, and of course the irony being is that I still tend to go for the same sort of things. And if there's a couple of tracks that I regularly play, computer game tracks as well, so the Hexen 2 soundtrack, something about it, the atmosphere is just really kind of haunting and has a bit of drama behind it, so I'll put a link into that soundtrack. And the June soundtrack from the motion picture of 1984, I think it was 84 June. Just something about that album, it's just an amazing piece of art for me, and I use it again and again, particularly when writing and getting myself into a certain mindset, whether fiction writing or role playing.